Hey YouTube, getting ready to change the exhaust bellows and the Outdrive bellows on this Volvo Penta 270 Outdrive. This is on a 85 Bayliner Trophy, and there you can kind of see that's the drive bellows, and then underneath down here you can barely see with the drive down, can't get a light in there even, is the exhaust bellows up under here. Both need replaced. The exhaust bellows you can do without removing the drive, but the drive bellows you have to remove the drive. So that's what I'm getting ready to do. First thing I did was remove the propeller. It's sitting over there. Pretty easy. You take one Allen bolt from the rear of this shaft. That's where that goes. You remove that. You have these tabs on the propeller, so you can see those tabs, and those tabs lock into the end of this cap, so you can see the little grooves where that locks in. So to get this off, you remove that Allen head, you bend those tabs away from these little slots. It's not very focused, kind of hard to see. There you can see with the drive in the background. Bend them away from this piece, and then you stick any kind of round tool. I use the Phillips head screwdriver through this hole, and then you turn counterclockwise, and that rotates right off of that shaft. Once you get this piece off, you just simply wiggle the propeller until it comes off. And you don't have to remove the propeller to remove the Outdrive, but it's going to make it a lot easier, because then you can put a frame up under this fin here, and I put some casters, rollers on the frame, so once I get all this disconnected, I should just be able to roll it back away from the boat. With the propeller on here, it's just too big, too awkward to try to get anything to sit up under this ledge right here. Plus I wanted to inspect it, and it's in pretty good shape. It looks pretty good. So next step is removing the linkage, so I'll get started on that. Alright, so got the cover off. Next thing we have to do, there's two bolts right there. They hold the shift cable in place on that bracket. You can see the shift cable right there coming out. So those two bolts have to come out. A little bit of a tight squeeze in there. Not going to get a ratchet in there. It's 7/16. A ratcheting wrench would be nice, but I don't have one. So boxed in. It might take a little while to get those out. Alright. So we got the two bolts out. Wasn't too difficult. Just tedious. Hard to get in there. They weren't real tight. come out pretty easy. I don't know if you can see. There's a lot of corrosion. I don't know if it's corrosion. It could be some kind of sealant on the threads. Hang on a minute. See if I can get a better picture of that, what that looks like. You can't really see it because the camera won't focus onto it. But like I said, I don't know if that's corrosion or if they use some kind of sealant to put those in to make sure it wouldn't leak. I mean, I don't think sealant's a bad idea. Maybe some silicone on those threads when they go back in, but and they came out pretty easy. So the next thing we have to do, remove this cotter pin right here. Let's see if I can do that without. They got it bent pretty good. Let's try to straighten that out some. Give her another yank. There we go. So cotter pin. There should have been a washer. There's not one there. I'll have to get a washer for that. So okay, shift cable was disconnected. Next, I'm going to take these out of the helmet and pop that round part out and then slide the helmet up. Alright, so I got the two Allen bolts out of the helmet. There they are. And they're pretty well corroded too, especially on the end, which made them come out. They were pretty tough to get out. So I had to use a standard Allen wrench with a box end wrench over it and a lot of muscle just to break them loose. Not sure how that piece is going to come out. The book says to stick two tools down in the holes that are curved and pry it out. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I'll let you know. Alright, so I'm at the point where I'm trying to get this piece right here out, and it's kind of an odd thing. I went online to look at the part, and it's just like a beveled pin that slides down in there, but it's in there pretty good. So these two little smaller holes off to the side, those are 1/4 inch thread, and so I got some 1/4 inch 20 bolts, and clean that out real good with a WD-40 and a brush, and I got those bolts started in there. Now you're supposed to be able to pull that pin out using those two bolts. Right now they're in there pretty tight, and I'm a little worried I might strip them, but it hasn't seemed to move, and I really don't have any choice. That's the only way to get this drive off. So I'm going to crank on those a little bit and see if I can't get that pin out. Okay, so I've been working those bolts in, and as you can see, try to get it better there. It came in focus. It's starting to lift that out, so hopefully I'll continue turning those in, and that pin's going to come out. Alright, well, there it is. Man, this phone doesn't want to seem to focus for some reason. And you can see there's like a ring of crud around it, and then it tapers down in there. Try to get that in focus a little better. There you can see how it tapers or is beveled down on the bottom. That was in there pretty tight. It felt like I was right at the point where I was about to stop because I was really having to put some torque on those 2 bolts, and then it finally popped loose. So now that's out. Next, I'm gonna have to I'll have to move that out of the way, disconnect the drive bellows, and then raise the stern drive up and disconnect the exhaust bellows, and then the water intake hose, and then go from there. So I got the pin out in this hood, or steering hood, steering knuckle, whatever you want to call it, pushed up out of the way. So now it's kind of dark. Easy access to that hose clamp. That's on the drive bellows. So now I'm going to disconnect that, and then I'll raise it up and disconnect the exhaust bellows and the water intake. And here's where that pin came out. You can see that's pretty nasty down in there. I sprayed some WD-40 on there to break up some of that grime, and I'll have to clean that out real good before I put it all back together. But I'm going to disconnect that clamp now. Alright, I have all of the bellows disconnected. So this, being the drive bellows, is disconnected. Come down here. And you can see down in there the exhaust bellows. And what I had to do is there's a hole down here. I'll shine my light up through. See if you can see where I went through. You can get to the hose clamp right there, up through the bottom. There's a little space down here that you can get a small ratchet, 1/4-inch drive, and I used a knuckle and a 7mm socket. Was able to get to that, but right there is, it's kind of hard to see from there. Right above the exhaust bellows, there you can see the ring on the clamp a little bit. That's right up under the drive bellows. There's no way to get to it. So what I did, I came over here, and I don't know if you can see that very well right there. I took that hose clamp off there where it goes through the transom. So I should still be able to pull the unit back with that disconnected there, but still connected onto the stern drive. So what I have to do next, I got to get these pins out right here. So I got to take these bolts out both sides and then drive these pins out. So not sure how that's going to go, but I'll give you an update. Alright, so give you an update where I'm at. I took these 2 bolts out, Allen heads. They come out pretty easy. Had to get on them a little bit, but then they backed out pretty easy. So what I have to do next is this pin, I have to drive it in to get it free. So what you have to do is you have to go up in the boat, turn the steering wheel all the way to one side, and what that does is it gives you room back here to drive this pin out. And then once that pin's out, go back inside the boat, turn all the way to the other side, and then drive this pin out. What I had to do, I made a little crate here, it's nothing fancy, to support the stern drive while I work on it. And there's nothing to that, it's just 2x4 made into a kind of a rectangle shape, and I put some cheap casters on it. These are little 2.5 inch casters from Harbor Freight. They're like $2 a piece. So once that's free, then hopefully I can just wheel it back, and that'll support the weight of the stern drive. I did have to lower the front of the boat some more to get the drive up a little higher, and that's why these wheels are off the ground. I'm thinking that once I drive those pins free, those wheels will probably drop there in the rear if it comes out or lets loose. But I can adjust the height of the stern drive by raising or lowering the front of the boat. So lower the front of the boat raises the stern drive, raise the front of the boat lowers it. Pretty simple stuff. But now I'm going to get a piece of wooden dowel and start driving those pins out, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, so got both pins out. This is what they look like. So this is the side that is on the outside that you drive in, and you'll want to note the orientation of that slot. It's pretty much vertical. It's tilted a little bit top towards the transom, and that's because that little groove right there, when you put the bolt in, the Allen head bolts that I took out, they run through that channel to lock that pin in place. So you want to make sure those go back in the same way. They came out pretty easy. I did have to use an old 1/2 inch extension to put on there and hit with the hammer. Once they started to move, they came out pretty easy. The wood dowel just splintered. It was pretty useless, so I needed something a little stronger. This worked. It didn't damage the pin or anything. As you can see, this is the side that I was hitting, and it barely scratched it. So now that's done, I think I can pull that straight out. I'm going to straighten up the steering and then give it a try, and we'll see what happens. Alright, there it is, off the boat. A couple things to note. Where I disconnected the water hose up here, and you can't see, let me get my flashlight. Okay, I disconnected the water hose in there, and I thought I would be able to pull it out along with the drive, but the hose down here, if you can see that, would catch on the bellows, the drive bellows, and wouldn't let it come forward. One other thing to note, there's a little nut here on the shift cable. That nut will not go through the housing on the stern drive. So that nut has to come off as well. And then when you're getting ready to pull this, I was struggling at first. And I thought, man, I bet that U-joint is seized up on that shaft. But you can see it was greased pretty well. That wasn't my problem. It's down here. And this is called the reverse linkage. I'm not quite sure what it's there to do, but it had the stern drive locked in up underneath here. And you can see where it's shiny right there. And right here, there's little hooks. They're hooked on to this shaft. That shaft right there. So I'm pulling. Not getting anywhere. And then I realized these two hooks were holding that shaft. And so I wasn't sure what to do, but I reached up and grabbed it right here, and it just pops down. So as soon as I pulled that down, I grabbed the unit, it rolled right out. So a couple things that'll help you if you're the first time doing this. Make sure you take that nut off. Make sure you disconnect the water intake from the stern drive. And when you get ready to pull it, give this thing a little pull down, and hopefully yours will slide off as easy as mine did. So I'm going to go ahead and get these bellows off. That U-drive bellows is so rotted, screwdriver just slides right through it like it's butter. The exhaust bellows is a little newer. And I'm going to go ahead and replace that water intake hose and clamp. So I'm going to get all this off. Get my stern drive cleaned up. I'm probably going to paint it. Try to get it cleaned up, and I want to get some paint on it because I have some spots on it that you can see. I don't know what this is made of. I'm guessing aluminum. I might have to check, but there's some spots that are pitted really bad. So I'd like to get some paint on that, just to make sure it'll last a little longer. But I gotta get cleaned up first. The U-joint, I inspected it. It looks pretty good. I don't see any wear, but I'll make sure it's in good shape. I mean, if you're going to replace it, now would be the time when you've got it apart. But I'll get this cleaned up and painted, and we'll do the installation.